We've had a Ford Lightning for exactly 1 year and driven 18,000 miles, and it's been surprisingly uneventful. No issues, no maintenance, no recalls, but that's all kinda to be expected from a company that's been making trucks for over 100 years. However, if I might be a Karen for just a few minutes, there are 3 things that I would like to speak to a manager about. 1. The extremely shiny chrome around the dashboard is blindingly bright and rather annoying. The second thing, anytime I get an over-the-air vehicle update, it erases all of my settings, my radio station presets and my charging limits, which is also fairly unfortunate. And the third thing is just the navigation and software UI is just not as friendly or easy to use as Rivian or Tesla. Again, not deal breakers, just slightly annoying things that I still have not gotten used to. However, I didn't buy this as a daily driver. I bought it as a work truck, which, as we drive it, is slowly becoming free. In a boy math kind of way. Let me explain. The average cost of gas right now here in the USA in 2024 is $3.08. And the average price of electricity, at least here in Utah, is 10 cents per kilowatt hour. Which means at some point it becomes more cost effective to use electricity as fuel instead of gasoline. Let me explain. On the left side of the graph, we have total cost, and on the bottom, we'll take miles driven. Gas trucks are initially cheaper than electric trucks, but the fuel costs more, meaning there's more costs over time. An electric truck is more expensive up front, but the electricity itself is pennies, meaning the cost over time is less aggressive. There is a point where electric trucks do become cheaper than gas trucks, and a point even farther down the line where they become completely free. Completely free where they pay for themselves in gas savings. Again, in a boy math kind of way. So let's figure out where that line is here in 2024. The 2 examples I'm going to use will be trucks that can both tow 10,000 pounds. The cost of the Ford Lightning electric truck is about $72,000, and with 320 miles of range, costs about 4 cents per mile to drive, with Utah electricity. The cost of a new Ford F-150 gas-powered truck that can tow 10,000 pounds is much cheaper, $48,000. It does have a 36-gallon tank and at 19 miles per gallon cost about 16 cents per mile to drive. The gas truck is already 4 times more expensive than the electric truck, but we haven't even gotten into the maintenance yet, or the time spent by an employee who's on the clock at the gas station or driving to the gas station. Let's just assume that a fill-up takes about 15 minutes, and the employee who's driving in this situation makes about $25 an hour. That adds another $6.25 to the cost of each fill-up, which is another 1 cent per mile. My EV avoids this by getting a complete fill-up overnight at the shop just by plugging in. I'm nickel and diming here, but you'll see why in just a second. There's also the cost of lost revenue while the work truck is going through each of its recommended service intervals, like an oil change every 5,000 miles, which costs about $95 and might take an hour or 2 out of the normal workday for an employee to pick it up and drop it off at the shop. This happens every 5,000 miles, or in my case would have happened 3 times this year if I was driving gas, and it adds about another 3 cents per mile for a gas truck. We're currently at 20 cents per mile to drive a gas-powered truck versus 4 cents per mile to drive an EV. Gas and oil aren't the 2 main expenses though. Every 60,000 miles there's a transmission, differential, and transfer case fluid replacement on the gas truck, which is about $670, plus, again, the lost revenue from having the truck be gone for a day, which I won't factor in. This maintenance adds about another penny per mile. And there's other things like spark plugs every 100,000 miles and engine air filters, none of which apply to an EV. At this point though, we're talking fractions of a penny per mile, which is getting a bit too small even for me. Also, a bit harder to calculate are the brake pads and rotors, since EVs hardly ever use their brakes. As you let off the accelerator in an EV, the electric motors can just take the energy of the car slowing down and put it back into the battery. This is called regenerative braking. You end up with more electricity in your battery at the bottom of a hill than you had at the top, which is a pretty cool feature electricity-wise, while also not having to replace your brake pads as often. Brakes are still a regular maintenance thing about every 30,000 miles or so on a gas truck, and probably every 100,000 miles or so on an EV, so I'll add another penny per mile to the chart. All in all, with basic maintenance, assuming there's nothing major wrong with either truck, it costs about 22 cents per mile to drive gas and 4 cents per mile to drive electric, which means that break-even point where electric becomes cheaper than gas is right around 130,000 miles. It did start off higher with the initial purchase price, of course, but by saving 18 cents per mile driven, over time it definitely becomes the cheaper ride. And your first question after hearing all this might be to ask, well, what if the battery goes out? And to answer, that would not be my problem since the warranties on these trucks are absolutely insane. Ford has the worst warranty of them all, with 8 years or 100,000 miles, almost getting us to that break-even point. The Cybertruck, bless its heart, has an 8-year, 150,000 mile warranty, which definitely gets us across the cheaper to drive than a gas truck line. Rivian, however, has the king of warranties with its quad-motor MaxPack electric truck at 175,000 miles for the drivetrain and the battery. So if anything goes wrong with the electric motors or the battery itself, is completely covered by warranty long after the electric truck becomes cheaper to drive than a gas truck. Becoming cheaper to drive, though, is not quite the same thing as completely paying for itself in gas savings and becoming free. In boy math. To get that number, we have to extrapolate the data a little bit more, but one thing you can't put a price on is good sleep. Huge thanks to 8 Sleep for sponsoring this video. I've been using this 8 Sleep pod cover for about a year now, and every time my wife and I travel together, without fail she'll mention something about missing our bed back at home. And that's because not only is it the smartest bed in the world with its internal dual zone liquid heating and cooling, it does its sleep optimizing adjustments to keep us in that restful zone of sleep for longer periods of time, getting about 34% deeper sleep and helping people fall asleep 44% faster. The 8 Sleep Pod has a high-tech layer that wraps around an existing mattress like a fitted sheet. The different sides or zones can get as cool as 55 degrees Fahrenheit or as warm as 110 degrees for the people who like really toasty beds. Plus, 8 Sleep has just released the Pod 4 Ultra that can automatically lift the bed into different positions for reading or to automatically help eliminate snoring. Not that I need that personally or anything. But if you use the discount code JERRYRIG before December 14th, you can get up to $600 off the 8 Sleep Pod 4. Keep in mind though that in order for this mattress to give you that optimal sleep experience, tracking the heart rate and all the biometric sensors, there is an autopilot subscription that costs about 60 cents a night. And that subscription is required for the first year. But if sleeping is your jam, try it risk-free for 30 days, and if you don't love it, return it for a full refund. I'll leave a link down in the description. And huge thanks to 8 Sleep for sponsoring this video. Obviously, this whole electric truck being a superior financial decision all kind of falls apart if you're the type of person who drives more than 300 miles a day or tows a heavy load more than, say, 175 miles, since as we found, towing heavy cuts your range in about half. Gas or diesel is still the king in those specific situations, but as a regular work truck or for towing heavy loads locally, an electric truck is pretty phenomenal. Getting back to when the electric truck becomes free, a Ford Lightning right now costs around $70,000. And for it to pay itself off in gas savings alone, it would take around 400,000 miles. Which I'm not there yet, obviously, and won't be for a while. And while it is mathematically and realistically probably improbable, but there are Teslas that have accomplished that 400,000 miles on a single battery pack. It's not outside the realm of possibility, but it is far more likely than it would be with a gas-powered truck. There's just more things to go wrong when you have moving parts in an engine. And you can see through this math why oil companies would be big mad about electric vehicles. These numbers are already good right now, and they're only going to improve as time goes on. And buying a used electric truck would be even cheaper, and you get into that free realm even sooner. After putting about 20,000 miles on all 3 of my electric trucks, if I had to pick my favorite right now would be Rivian, which I do have a discount for, I'll leave that in the description. But as an inexpensive work truck, the Lightning holds its own for sure. Any electric truck will eventually be cheaper than a gas truck, and with acceleration better than most sports cars, it is fun to drive from day one. Thanks a ton for watching, and I'll see you around.
I see you guys are on YouTube, right?
Yeah.
Were you guys the guys that shot the Cybertruck?
No. Yeah, that was us.
What the heck? We were like joking some homeless guys living the dream out here.